Hi, coaches. Today, I want to talk to you about strategies. Now, strategies is incredibly important to know when you are facilitating any type of coaching session. Strategies are those micro steps that you take to get the outcome that you're getting. And of course, when you understand how to do a strategy elicitation, we can identify those micro steps to get the good results that you're getting. And we can also work out the micro steps to get the bad outcome that you're getting. Instead of working on this massive big problem of anxiety or depression or performance being an athlete or money problems, what we can do is use strategy elicitation to really drill down. When does the problem actually occur? Is it something that you say to yourself, something that you see, something that you feel? What is it that's creating that anxiety at the other end of that? And of course, we can look at that for the performance side of things. You know, if you are having fantastic outcomes with your social media or in your business, what are those steps that you take to get those great results? What do you say to yourself? How do you set yourself up? What's going on with your mindset to be able to get the fantastic results on your social media or in your marketing or or in your relationships or with your money wealth investing? When you identify what you do naturally to get success, you can use that strategy over onto something that may be a bit more problematic. And therefore, if you've got procrastination, we can install the strategy of success for you to now be motivated to get good outcomes time and time again. It's very, very reliable. So today I want to drill down into what are strategies, how do you elicit somebody's strategy, eye patterns, the language that we're listening out for. There's a lot to cover. And again, this is why we teach this in NLP practitioner and we go into the advanced strategies when it comes to master practitioner. So let's get started. Formally, a strategy is a sequence of internal and external processes that occur in the mind and body that consistently produce a specific results. So, as I've said already, they're the steps that we go through to achieve a result. And you have a strategy for everything that you do. Everything that you do has a strategy. You will have a buying strategy, a sex strategy, a wealth strategy, an eating strategy, a rest strategy, a love strategy. Everything that you do will have an unconscious strategy playing out, and it will give you the experience that you're getting. Let's look at this analogy of baking a cake. We need to have that reliable recipe with each and every single one of those steps to ensure that we get the same outcome each and every time. I think about the brand, Coca-Cola, and their recipe is so specific to ensure that each and every time their customers open up their drink, it will be the exact same as what they are used to. And so with a recipe, the idea of baking a cake, the question is, does your recipe have all of the steps? Do we have the knowledge about what ingredients, the bowls, the utensils, how hot the oven needs to be, for how long? Does your recipe have everything that you need to ensure you get the same results each and every time? And is the recipe written out in the correct sequence? I know that with my Nana's recipe book, all handwritten, that she does not identify each and every single one of those steps. And just to demonstrate for you how problematic that can be, is that, it just says 2 eggs. Well, I know this is ridiculous, but do you add the eggs while you're mixing the cake? Or do you add the eggs at the end when the cake comes out of the oven and crack the egg open on top? Of course, common sense says that's ridiculous, Claire. But in this analogy, I just want to demonstrate to you that if you do not have the correct and reliable strategy each and every time, you could really muck up things. And so if we apply this to life, like we apply it to your intuition, we apply it to how you spend money, how you relate to people, how you do your marketing, what are those correct and reliable steps to take to feel really good about the outcome that you're getting? So my question to you is, do you have any behaviors that are no longer serving you that you would actually like to get rid of? Maybe things like procrastination, overspending, overeating, mindlessly scrolling on your phone. What would it be like if we really identified your strategy on what's causing you to go down that problematic loop and then resolve it? And then again, playing with the positive stuff. What if we elicited your strategy on how you do reliable, trustworthy intuition, really drilling in on those moments when your intuition was switched on? And it was like, great, I want to apply that to everything that I do in my world so that I can generate income, create opportunities, really live that life that I want that's based on my intuition and my blueprint. Like, how amazing would that be? With NLP strategies, you can identify that. I know that when I've worked with mediums, psychics, NLP coaches, wellness practitioners, when we identify their intuition, how they get into that right state to be able to trust it, they get their businesses are absolutely booming based off that one piece. So drilling a bit more down into how we work out strategies, in any particular scenario, we are specifically sorting for a sequence of what pitches does somebody make, what feelings do they feel, what do they say to themselves, what are they doing? Hearing the VAK here, the visuals, the feelings, the auditory, what is going on in the mind and how are they making sense of their reality? So strategies can be internal and external. An external strategy would be like that gymnast who learns how to have that muscle memory and perfects the sequence of steps to be able to create that perfect performance. That's that external strategy. But of course, there's going to be a whole lot of internal going on with their mindset and what they say to themselves. And a different kind of internal strategy could be a sequence of negative thoughts that inevitably lead to depression, anxiety, health problems. So, who's experienced anxiety? It is not a nice feeling. Some may argue that, anxiety is happening at an unconscious level, it's automatic, I've got no control of it, it's just part of who I am. Well, when we look at anxiety, anxiety is the mind looking to the future for the worst case scenario due to a challenge that's happened in the past. So there could be some level of a limiting decision. I will never be caught by a stressful event ever again. And we can already start to hear that there is a strategy going on that got created probably when we were little, that I will never be caught by a stressful surprise ever again. Like that we're saying something to ourselves, we're feeling the emotion of it, we're feeling the overwhelm, and the anxiety then starts to kick in as a way of checking out what's the worst case scenario. But the truth is, in an NLP coaching session, I'm going to ask you, how do you do anxiety? I want you to disassociate from the anxiety that your body is demonstrating, to look at yourself and to recognize what is going on. What are the steps that you're taking? What are you saying to yourself? What are you seeing? What's the trigger? What's the feeling? Just before you do anxiety, before it kicks in. Because when we can identify what's causing it, how you do anxiety, then we can actually interrupt that and work on that at that core level to be able to resolve and dissolve anxiety, depression, procrastination, anything else there that's getting in the way. So, again, anxiety and strategies. You can definitely elicit how someone does anxiety and look for the specific trigger, resolve that, rather than anxiety being a consuming big deal experience. You really can resolve anxiety in a short amount of time. So, as I said at the beginning, we can elicit strategies for problems and for success. So, how do you elicit somebody's strategy? It sounds really quite complex, doesn't it? But the truth is, you just have to ask. You have to ask the right questions. But the honesty is that people love talking about themselves. If you found yourself sitting next to somebody quite successful on a plane or or at a restaurant or something at a network meeting, you could get them starting to talk about themselves and how they created the success and what did they say to themselves, and conversationally start to actually elicit their strategy. Now you know that you can actually duplicate it. And it's the same for like little kids, if you're a parent and you've got kids with all sorts of, being bullied or something like that, you can start to elicit their strategy on when do they start to notice it's a problem. You can use strategies for everything. Knowing that NLP is based on modeling success, this is where it comes in. It comes in with strategies. Taking you back a little bit of a history lesson, Richard Bandler, Tad James, and Tony Robbins, really early days of NLP, was invited to come into the US Army to study what the expert pistol shooters were doing to get those accurate results. The Army recognized that once they could identify the strategy on what the successful pistol shooters were doing, then they could go and teach that to the entire group. So the three of them, Richard, Tad, and Tony, came in and they could identify the strategy of that success, and they could bring down the army basic training down from 4 days down to one. So obviously already increasing the investment, the savings that the army would have there on time and all the things that go into training, then increase the success rate and build in that confidence in within that group. So what they did was they got up close to the expert shooter and asked them, just before you do the thing, do you make a picture in your head before you shoot? What do you say to yourself before you shoot? How do you believe about pistol, or what do you believe about pistol shooting? How do you hold the pistol accurately? And some of the things that came up were actually quite surprising in the things that I've heard Richard talk about. Instead of like looking at the target, it was like they had pushed the target just behind the target. So they were really emphasizing like they were going to go right into that micro target. With that knowledge, how they stood, the beliefs that they had about themselves, all the things, they installed that strategy of excellence into the other pistol shooters to prove that the strategy was accurate. And then, of course, they designed that universal training for the entire army, ensuring that the best of the best. So, again, can you imagine how much time you would save and how much money you could gain if you knew how to model the top performers in your field? This is one of the reasons I do not hesitate to pay a lot of money for my coaches, my mentors, my trainers, because they've already done the things. I don't want to do 15 or 20 years of trial and error. Just give me the strategy and I will go and do that. And so, in the long run, paying for coaching is an incredibly cheap investment into being able to have the strategy for success. So let's go more into the VAK, the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, and the AD of strategies. Remember in your practitioner training when you learnt about eye patterns and how we look to different quadrants of the brain to access different parts, different pieces of information? Well, this is where strategies comes into place because a lot of the deception detectives, solicitors, obviously people in law will train themselves to identify the eye patterns to recognize is the person actually being accurate in the way that they're giving forth the information. And this is where we use this in helping somebody else identify their strategies. So when you are looking to the person, you are looking for at your right. When they look up to visual, remember, it is your right. If you turn things around, it would be their left. But this is for others. When you're looking for eye patterns, you are looking that they look to visual right is your right as you look at them. Auditory, remember, is to the ears and to the right, and auditory digital, so the criteria, the facts finding, and the self-talk is down right, down to, down in the right bottom corner. And then, of course, on the other side, that visual construct. This is where they're creating what the picture that they're trying to convey. And if they look to their left ears, then this is auditory construct. So they're making sounds up. And then if they're looking down to their left, or as you look at them down to the left, this is them accessing feelings. Let's say that you want to elicit somebody's strategy. We are multitasking as coaches. We are looking for I patterns and we're listening for predicates all at once. And what we're doing is we're looking for clues to say, okay, what are they saying? And does it match where their eyes are moving to? The client's not going to actually be consciously aware of what's going on. So you need to be switched on and listening and watching for what's going on. This is the detailed work of like an NLP master. They would absolutely go right into the detail of this. But if you're first learning it, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just start to be aware that when you are asking, any question and you notice somebody's eyes starting to look up, is like, okay, what was the picture that you made? Because sometimes as a coach, you'll ask a question and the client will say, I'm not getting anything. And you're like, actually, I saw your eye patterns move. I know that you got something. What was the picture? What were you saying to yourself? What were you feeling? And really helping the client bring forward what's going on. Because for whatever reason, there's a level of hesitation. Knowing eye patterns really helps bring forward things for the client. Like it's safe to start to talk about this. Okay, but when we look at the formal strategy elicitation, I'm going to quickly show you the steps that I would teach in my NLP practitioner training. So first you need to get in rapport with the client. 100% you need to have rapport to be able to get the best out of them. And you simply ask, what I'd like to do now is to ask you some specific questions which will help me understand how you achieve that certain result. Is that okay with you? And then you get the person into the state that you're eliciting by using the appropriate language and context. So, can you recall a time when you were totally confident? And make sure that that person is fully associated into that intense congruent state, like looking through their own eyes. So, again, it's that transvaridational search. Can you recall a specific time? As you go back to that time now, can you see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt in that moment? There's the optional step here in eliciting somebody's strategies to actually anchor it, anchor it to a knuckle or anchor it to, their chin, their glabella, the heart, if it's a good one. It's not necessary, but if you want to anchor at the same time, you definitely can if it's a good state. And now that they're associated into that confidence, what was the very first thing that caused you to be confident? Was it something you saw, something you heard, something you felt, or something you said to yourself? Take yourself back to that time and slow down the movie of your mind. What was going on for you? And then you write down that step. After you saw, heard, felt that, what was the very next thing that happened as you were totally confident? Was it something that you saw, something that you heard? Was it something you felt or something that you said to yourself? This is going to get quite repetitive, but we are looking for those micro steps. So somebody may have associated back to a wonderful time, feeling incredibly confident. And it was like, great, what was the thing that caused you to be totally confident? Well, I saw my friends there, like it was like, yep, let's go. I was like, hold on, that's too many steps. So you saw your friend there? Great. So that's now a visual part of the strategy. And then what happened next? Was it something you saw, something you heard, something you felt? And it was like, yeah, I said something to myself. I said, like, yep, great, my friend is here. And it's like, great. So now we're writing down AD. It was something that they said to themselves. And so I'm a bit curious. What was that next thing that caused you to be totally confident? And they will say, like, well, yeah, then I heard their voice. So it was like, so we've now starting to elicit their strategy, the the VADA strategy for this one. And you want to repeat it back to the client so that they can also hear it for themselves, that it's that you've listened to them and that they can almost like a strategy scrambler, but the reverse. They can start to try it on. And so with that, it's all about recognizing, okay, these are the steps that build in confidence, that you have to see something, you have to say something to yourself, and then you also hear somebody else's voice. So you want to check in after you saw that, heard that, felt that. What was the very next thing that you said to yourself just before you were totally confident? And you may have to loop. But I would suggest that you would only loop about 4 or 5 times. Anything more than that, and that strategy is getting very complex and would need some coaching on it. And so then we would just list that out back to the client. So for you to feel totally confident, you have to see something, see a friend, you have to say something to yourself, and then hear the voice of someone else, like, yes, well done. Is that about right? And we're just going to repeat that back to them just to make sure that you've got that strategy correct, to be totally confident. And so now that the client is totally aware of how they're confident, we can actually take away the context, or sorry, the content of what's going on there and help them identify that anytime that they're going into like a stressful meeting or something that's a bit tense, then to bring forward that confidence first, they have to see something that's inspiring, see something that lights them up. Then they have to say something to themselves, and then they have to have that really good sounds around them, whether that's music or somebody else saying like that's awesome, or get on the phone and talk to that friend. But for them to be able to have that strategy now in place, it doesn't have to be the exact same content. You can now use the visual, the AD and the A. That was my example, by the way. It could be VAK, it could be KADV, it could be anything. But when you identify that's the strategy that creates success, then you can duplicate it over into other areas of your life so that that now becomes confident instead of stressful. You can also use it if you want to enhance your performance. If you're somebody who's an athlete, and it's like, great, I now know the steps that gets me in that peak performance. I don't need to use willpower. I don't need to meditate to clear my mind. I just have to use those steps to ensure that I'm in that peak state to get the outcome that I want. And of course, you can use that in a reverse. If somebody was doing anxiety, slow the movie down. What are the steps? And then identify that when you say something negative to yourself or you see that thing, then we need to interrupt the strategy so that instead of doing anxiety, you're now maybe doing curiosity. It's a lot of fun. You can play with strategies in a multitude of ways, but it's all about listening for those micro steps and to be able to get that outcome that they want. It's worth playing with because you can use this with sales, money, health, relationships, weight, fertility, all the things. Well worth really getting familiar with. I'm Claire Chancellor from Be Your Purpose Coaching. Enjoy strategies, and I'll talk to you later.